Hello again, welcome back to another one of these. Project Bluebeam. Not something I'm completely familiar with. Something that's coming to prevalence quite instantly. Yes, the bunnies are back out in the bloody room. I try not to be too distracted. Project Bluebeam. So, very recently, especially after the incidents in Maui with the horrific wildfires that have gone on over there, there's been a lot of crass speculation and conflation of this conspiracy theory, which apparently started in the 90s, saying that Project Bluebeam was responsible for the wildfires because there were some photos that were shown that whilst everything was burnt out and completely destroyed, certain blue objects in the images weren't. It did get me thinking, what is this Project Bluebeam? Because it is rearing its name. Its name is being mentioned more and more, usually on TikTok videos and Instagram stories and Facebook reels and things like that. Interspersed with Kent Hovind videos, bloody Joe Rogan, gymnastics videos for some strange reason, but anything that comes on my feed, I don't know why. But unfortunately, like most conspiracy theories, the tiniest amount of scrutiny, and they will all fall apart. So what I'm going to do, the original concept of Project Bluebeam was originally created by somebody called Serge Monsat, who was a French-Canadian journalist who, very much like, I suppose, L. Ron Hubbard and other people like that, very quickly devolved into quackery and pseudoscience and things like that, and basically made up a load of hoo-ha. Joseph Smith, I have just seen the Book of Mormon, by the way, in London. We saw it last week, didn't we, Max?
Yes.
We loved it, didn't we?
Yes.
It was amazing.
Hello.
Hasa Diva Igawai. If you know what that means, you know what that means. So anyway, so the people who, previously rational, suddenly create an idea which somehow gets a lot of traction. So I'm going to have a look at this Project Bluebeam, and all fanciful notions aside, it's a bit of a complicated, it's a 4-step process. I've printed off the pages from Rational Wiki about the article. I'm going to go into it a little bit deeper than not at all, and see how much it stands up to the tiniest amount of scrutiny, of practicality in 2023.
In the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan gave a series of speeches basically saying that people of the Earth would unite if faced by an out-of-this-world alien threat.
I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
At the time, nobody knew exactly what he meant, but they thought that he meant well.
Ronald Reagan, I was born in 73, grew up southeast England, largely completely ignorant of politics in general. I think Jimmy Carter was president when I was born, and I think Harold Wilson was Prime Minister when I was born. Of course, you don't take notice of such things until they start talking about it as you're a bit older in school. So the first president of the United States I remember being president of the United States was Ronald Reagan. This was also around the time Spitting Image started to come out and take the mickey out of him quite a bit. And in retrospect, the way they parodied him wasn't actually that kind, what with the old early onset dementia and what have you.
What? Don't worry about the brain, Ed. Oh. I feel so much better without it. Also, it's just dandy for keeping things cold, Ed.
But his statements there, I may be wrong, I probably have to look into it, but I don't want to because it means stopping everything and recording, which I've got a really bad habit of doing. I believe, as bizarre as it is, this may be in response to the film E.T. and to a lesser extent Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, obviously, those movies, the alien visitors to our planet were benevolent and, not destructive or not aggressive. But again, after Ronald Reagan saw E.T., he actually started to properly think about the circumstances and events of what would happen should we be visited by creatures from another planet. Now, I've gone over this concept before in my Avatar video, which I will link here. I've never done that before, so I really hope it worked. You do a thing, and then a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a thing.
And a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see if the thing works. Let me know. But obviously, the concept of being visited by visitors from another planet, way outside the realms of possibility for reasons explained in that video. Short answer: we're too distant, we're too quiet, nobody knows we're here, and for the 40 billion stars in our galaxy alone, not the universe, in our galaxy alone, you'd have to be an amazingly bit of cosmic coincidence just head off towards us and find us first time. Because if you get that wrong, it's another 4,500 light years to get to the closest star, and there's a heck of a detour when you're not reading the map properly. But basically, the crux of what he was saying there is a bit of a fanciful notion. If we suddenly found ourselves being threatened or intimidated by vastly technologically superior creatures or beings from another planet, and let's face it, if they got here and found us, they would have to be vastly technologically superior, we wouldn't stand a chance if we tried to defend ourselves. How would we react? Would we club together to defend ourselves? Would we all become this one nation, this new world order, etc.? I don't think so. In the current, can you imagine if all of a sudden we were visited and somehow they communicated to us in a language that some of us could understand? I think I can name 3 countries who would try to say, yeah, we're in charge of the planet, but those guys over there, they really need annihilating. I don't think there are 3 or 4 particular world leaders, or call themselves world leaders, who have got a whole one world nation in mind. So while it is a fanciful notion of every nation on the planet clubbing together and pointing their guns at the big nasty in the sky, at the moment here in 2023, I really don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
It wasn't until the 1990s when George H.W. Bush started to push the New World Order to the public that people began to understand the unity that Ronald Reagan spoke about.
Out of these troubled times, our 5th objective, a new world order, can emerge. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order. It is a big idea, a new world order. Such is a world worthy of our children's future.
The thing about politicians is when they're trying to drum a notion that they've created into the minds of the public psyche, they just say the same thing over and over again. It's not a new thing. All the politicians leading up to Brexit, with their pointy thumbs and because you're not allowed to do that, you have to do that. Let's get Britain working. Brexit is good for Britain. This, that and the other. Any political slogan will be said every single time. And it's not just politicians. If you look at film actors on press junkets, when they're sat in a hotel room and it's all blacked out and they've got interviewer after interviewer after interviewer, they'll repeat the same things over and over again because they're just saying the same thing for a different audience. The concept of a new world order, first thought about actually after the First and Second World War. Obviously, everybody wanted a little bit of stability, and the concept of a new world order where everybody was getting on and holding hands and skipping through meadows and putting daisy chains on each other's heads. Again, another fanciful notion. But obviously the phrase new world order has been usurped by people who think it's new world control, and it's not the same thing. Hoping that one day all of the nations of the world will join together and actually be friends is not the same thing as George Orwell's 1984.
It wasn't exactly the kind of unity that would benefit the masses, but the elite, as they would have us united under the control of a one-world government, a one-world religion, a one-world everything. So we have a solid connection between the New World Order and an alien invasion, especially since George H.W. Bush was vice president to Reagan and his successor. It even goes in order. Alien invasion, New World Order. Alien invasion, New World Order. Let's fast forward to more recent events where we are seeing the alien agenda escalate more than ever. 2014, Bill Clinton talks about aliens on Jimmy Kimmel.
Because I want to know. I'd want to know what has been going on. Did you do that?
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, we had, I think it was at the beginning of my second term, we had the anniversary of Roswell.
You waited that long?
I did.
Wow.
Well, I didn't. And then there's also Area 51. You remember there was a great sci-fi movie where there was an alien kept deep under the ground in Area 51? Well, first I had people go look at the records on Area 51 to make sure there was no alien down there. And people thought that because everybody who works there has to stop about an hour away and put on special clothing and then drive in and out. And that's because a lot of our stealth technology is made there. We know that now, but there are no aliens there. So then when the Roswell thing came up, I knew we'd get, gazillions of letters. So I had all the Roswell papers reviewed, everything. So I think, look, what do we know? We know now we live in an ever-expanding universe. We know that there are billions of stars and planets literally out there, and the universe is getting bigger. We know from our fancy telescopes that just in the last 2 years, more than 20 planets have been identified outside our solar system that seem to be far enough away from their suns and dense enough that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that we're alone.
Yeah, pretty much what I said in my little Avatar video. Nothing he's saying here is groundbreaking. I mean, that video was from 2014, so this would have been after Independence. I think the movie he was talking about was, of course, Independence Day. So Area 51 is where stealth technology was developed. It's where secret fighter planes developed. It's a top secret military facility. Like those idiots who were going to try and gather together and storm the place. You're allowed to be killed there. There's signs everywhere saying trespassers will be shot on sight. Use of deadly force authorised. If you got hold of all these secrets or information, you could sell them to the highest bidder. And you massively, seriously threaten the national security of every friendly nation connected to the United States. And I dare say if anybody did get into Area 51 to have a look around, they would know what they were looking for anyway.
2015, Barack Obama talks about aliens on Jimmy Kimmel.
This is something I feel like, if I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
If I was the president...
It was unlikely that I was going to be president.
The moment I was inaugurated, my hand would it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do.
I like Barack Obama a lot. I don't have a lot of, obviously I can't comment on his presidency because I'm English. What he said and did during his his two amazing terms, doesn't affect me directly, apart from, obviously on the world stage, things like that. But it's quite humorous that he's picked out two cherry-picked interviews there with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, two Democratic presidents, I should mention. And they basically both said the same thing. Jimmy Kimmel's question was word for word, exactly the same thing he asked both presidents, and the answer was the same. Even if there was anything, I'm the president, I wouldn't tell you, and I certainly wouldn't tell you on a fluffy, daytime chat show. But it should be taken into account that the person who immediately followed Barack Obama, the worst president in United States history, the sexual predator, illegally, convicted sexual predator, tax evading, misogynistic arsehead, Donald Trump, stole a shitload of files and hid them in Mar-a-Lago. They were in his bathroom. They were on a little stage. There were boxes and boxes. I literally thought the first picture we saw were there were a few folders out on the carpet. That was it. No, he had tons of the stuff, and he's been recorded. Somebody recorded him showing off these documents.
In a moment, only on CNN, you will hear what jurors will hear one day. The recording was made 2 summers ago, July 2021, at the former president's club in Bedminster, New Jersey. You will clearly hear the former president as he is speaking to several people. According to the special counsel's indictment, they include a writer working on Mark Meadows' memoir, the publisher, and 2 of Trump's staff members. The president was aware he was being recorded. This is the first time it is being played publicly.
I was just saying, because we were talking about it, and he said he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the papers. This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, yeah?
I don't know, we'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to
Declassify.
figure out
Yeah. See, as president, I could have declassified
Yeah.
it. Now I can't, but this is
Yeah,
classified.
now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Do you seriously believe, for 1 second, if there was any evidence whatsoever that we'd been visited by aliens and they were in the presidential records, Donald Trump would be waving that stuff around like confetti? He would be, he's a braggart. He's a show-off. Look how amazing I am. Look how important I am. I'm not president anymore, but I've got all these secret documents. Look, they said I was going to evade Iran. All this, etc. This is all public record now. Part of his deposition or whatever it was, all the indictments, 92 indictments. That's an amazing president right there. If you still support Donald Trump, by the way, get off my channel. I don't want you. Go away. Anyway, so I was saying. So yeah, if we had been visited by aliens and if the information was within the grasp of any sitting president, Donald Trump would be raving around like Harold Macmillan, I hold in my hands a piece of paper. So that, I think, conclusively is proof enough that, well, one of 2 things. One, we've never been visited by aliens, and all the coyness is just to keep the interest alive and what have you. Or 2, the people in charge of the documents at the White House knew Donald Trump was too thick to be able to handle that kind of information.
So you see, what used to pass for a tinfoil hat theory is now being pushed by the mainstream and accepted on a wide scale. In fact, the popular theoretical physicist Michio Kaku seems to be a pawn for programming the masses with the belief in aliens.
A crisis of leadership. We've been talking about this all week. But what if there was some sort of outer space crisis? An alien invasion sounds crazy, perhaps, but then who thought we'd ever see the stock market swing 5% a day all week long? So maybe it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. If aliens invaded, who would step up to lead us in that fight, and could we even win? That's just one of the questions the Discovery Channel's new series, Curiosity, looks at. Joining me now is physics professor Michio Kaku, who is a consultant for the series. Professor, welcome. The biggest question before we get any invasion is, do aliens even exist, and how would we know?
Well, the Kepler satellite currently orbiting in outer space has identified about 50 planets that seem very much Earth-like. In fact, every week we discover another Jupiter-sized planet in outer space. Now, to be sure, most of them probably have no more than microbial life, just germs. But a few of them may have intelligent life, perhaps even more advanced than what we have on Earth.
Open your mind to the possibility that one day we will make contact with an intelligent civilization in outer space that could be thousands, millions of years ahead of us in technology.
The Kepler satellite has identified 2,000 planets orbiting other star systems. So tonight, when you look at the night sky, realize that somebody could be looking back at you.
Yeah, not really. Again, I'm going to reference my previous video. There's a famous picture I use with regard to the James Webb telescope. The precursor to that obviously was the Hubble, and there's something called the Hubble Deep Field Image, which I think that is in the constellation Orion, and if you held a pin up to arm's length in that direction, the Hubble Deep Field Image would be smaller than the pinhead. Now obviously there's thousands and thousands of galaxies in this tiny pinprick, literally a pinprick area from our point of view, and 1,000 galaxies, 40 billion stars in each galaxy. Do the math. Yes, of course, there's going to be life in somewhere else in the universe. I have no doubt whatsoever that there is other life out there. There absolutely has to be. We cannot be alone in the universe. But because we're not alone doesn't mean they're nearby. It's obviously the stuff of science fiction. You look at old typey movies like Forbidden Planet with Leslie Nielsen, or the original Star Trek by Gene Roddenberry. It's the same old idea of exploration. When we first colonised the planet, or we first explored the planet and then we colonised later, because that's what we do. That's how we found out about the world around us. And obviously, with advances in technology, people want to know more about the universe around us. But we're not going to get there anytime soon. Not in our lifetime. Not in 100 generations will we be able to travel to other galaxies, other planets, and come back and talk about it. That's the reason why it's called science fiction. I think I've said before, the Parker Solar Probe is currently the fastest thing that's in our planet. 330,000 miles an hour, it's currently whipping around the sun. If you were to travel to Proxima Centauri, it will still take you 4,500 years to get there. Which is why I said before, if you want to do that, you've got to start figuring out how to make babies in space, and just hope they're smart enough and want to be an astronaut when they grow up.
Whenever a mainstream scientist says anything about anything, there are millions upon millions of people willing to form their belief system around the statements of that scientist. So here we are in 2016, and when you look at any online poll as to whether aliens exist or not, the belief in aliens always wins by more than half. So we have passed the tipping point for critical mass, which perfectly sets the stage for a Project Bluebeam fake alien invasion.
I did wonder when he was going to get to the point. All the polls he may have mentioned, I'd like to see what his sources are. Yeah, I would love to think that the majority of people are waking up to the fact that this universe that we are in is a damn sight bigger than us, and we are not the only thing in it. It's probably linked in some way to the rise of secularism as well, where people are coming away from religion, taking a better look at the universe around us, and figuring out that, yeah, every time I look up at the star, it's not a twinkling light. That's the sun, around which is probably 3 or 4 planets, and all the stars I can see have all got planets around them. Of course there's going to be life out there.
Even though what we call outer space is not what we think it is, and we have never been to the moon or past low Earth orbit for that matter, NASA admits this on numerous occasions while you're not even paying attention.
NASA's next spacecraft, already being built and tested across America, will do those things and more.
This is the spacecraft that's going to take humans to explore the solar system. It's the next big step for NASA in exploration.
Called the Orion Multipurpose Crew Vehicle, or MPCV, this next-generation spacecraft will enable America to explore beyond low Earth orbit.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts.
I'm going to skip through this because he's gone through this before. It was a bit of a throwaway statement there where he said, and NASA admits he's never been to the moon. Garbage, a lie, basically. And the thing about the low Earth orbit, not getting out through low Earth orbit, no, we can't at the moment. Because the last time we did it was 1970? Apollo 17? I can't actually remember. I went to the Science Museum the other day with Max, and we saw Apollo 10. Here's a photo. Didn't actually land on the moon, but went around it, and the friction bands and coming back through the atmosphere shows you how bloody hot it gets up there. The Van Allen belts have been explained. Getting out of low Earth orbit has been explained. We can't get out of it because at the moment we haven't got the rockets to do it. But I do believe, is it next year? I think we may be putting people on the moon again. And I, for one, am really, really excited to see the live footage coming off the surface of the moon. I just hope they take some really good cameras.
So this leads me to flat Earth, and why, if we knew the Earth is flat and enclosed by an impenetrable barrier, Project Bluebeam would not work. If we all understood the truth about where we live, most likely the belief in aliens would be very rare. But since they lie to us and would have us believe that there are billions of galaxies and billions of other planets, the belief in intelligent extraterrestrial life becomes the norm. Not only that though, outer space and alien programming have been underway for quite some time. From a trip to the moon in 1901 to 10 Cloverfield Lane in 2016.
Wow. Out of all the alien invasion films he could have chosen, he went for 10 Cloverfield Lane. Which, by all accounts, if you're to believe the stories, wasn't actually anything to do with aliens. It was Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman, I think, where she gets trapped in a basement, and it's not until literally the last 20 minutes of the film that anything approaching aliens comes into play, and it's so tacked on, it's painful. And then the only connection to Cloverfield at all was when she drives out of the driveway and the sign says Cloverfield Lane. Only connection to the original Cloverfield movie. Very, very bizarre. But why he picked that one when there are so... I mean, I'm thinking Skyline, I'm thinking Invasion LA, Independence Day 2, any invasion film. He went for 10 Cloverfield Lane. That is bizarre. I mean, it's not a bad film because it's got Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it, and you know that's a plus from the word go.
The Tavistock Institute and Hollywood have been hard at work trying to introduce the masses to new ideas and manufacture our opinions. They've done a great job. We went from knowing that aliens don't exist to believing in aliens 100% without a shred of evidence. UFOs, on the other hand, are very real, unidentified flying objects. But all it is suppressed top-secret government and military technology. They will utilize these top-secret crafts to trick us into believing in an alien threat. They will also use holographic projections and something like the silent subliminal presentation system that can beam voices into our heads, which has already been patented for years now. Look it up.
I looked into that one. The patent expired. If you want something in the US Patents Office, you have to pay for it, and they stopped paying for it. So the patent has actually expired. Silent subliminal presentation system is something along the lines of beaming radio waves or radio frequencies to your inner ear, and it stimulates the bones in your ear to create sound so you can hear it. Very fanciful, almost science fiction, but you can have a patent for something and it being complete quackery or being complete pseudoscience, which I think this one was. There are headphones you can get. My wife did have a pair. That they don't go in the ear, they rest here on your temples. I can't remember what they're called, bone headphones, something along those lines. And they stimulate the bones here and they make you hear music, even though it's not actually transmitting music. It's all very sciencey. But yeah, so he's starting to get the bones of it. He hasn't got a lot of time on this video left, but he is getting to the crux of the elements of the Blue Beam Project. He's waffled on for God knows how long. Hardly mentioned flat Earth, bless him. I'm not too sure why he thinks the Earth being flat, even though they're both completely nonsensical situations, why the Earth being flat would mean that Project Bluebeam wouldn't work. Even though it wouldn't work at all, but I think you know where I'm going with this.
While you're at it, look at hologram technology that's already been used to show Michael Jackson on stage, and even Tupac performing as well. One last note, pay attention to the timing of alien programming. For instance, Hillary talking about aliens on talk shows and promising to disclose classified information about extraterrestrials when in office, and the release of Independence Day 2. The timing of these things says a lot in itself. This has been ODD TV. Thanks for watching.
That was that video. It wasn't actually a lot about the Project Bluebeam. He kind of touched on various elements of it. It basically comes in 4 parts. So the guy who did it, like I said, Serge Monsat, French-Canadian journalist, came up with this fanciful notion. I said that a lot today, haven't I? That one, we're going to have archaeological disasters, or there's going to be natural disasters that destroy previous archaeological artifacts, and we find magical new ones. The concept of an alien invasion is going to cause all the countries to come together to fight them, which is just something the presidents were saying as a happy ideal. And that holographic projection of some kind of Christ-like figure where we're shown to all and sundry and force us all to come together under one new religion in this new world order. It just doesn't make any sense. Right, so to stop me waffling, I'm just going to go through here. There is like I said, a Rational Media, Rational Wiki article about it. And wouldn't you know, it's all orchestrated by NASA. Those evil demagogues who want to control us all by exploring into space and fixing a space station constantly and having new solar panels, which is what they seem to do. I know there's a load of experiments and what have you up there, and they make some interesting 55-minute videos which as yet have not yet been debunked. Right, so I'll just have one through. Like I say, there's a bit of articles about his history. The big event, the Blue Beam Project, was originally going to happen in... When was it going to happen? Was going to happen in 1983. Didn't happen. So he changed it. 1995. Didn't happen. 1996. No. And then, of course, 2000. Still a bit late. Does anybody remember... This is a little bit of a sidebar. Dr. Harold Camping. He was a guy... It was a family church or something along those lines. He convinced a whole load of people that the rapture was definitely coming. This old guy who wasn't actually an ordained priest, but he was religious enough that he had his own church, so to speak. And he convinced a whole bunch of people, they were on the news and everything, to give away everything. Give away all your money, quit your job, come and live in this commune, have no worldly possessions because the rapture is definitely happening on September the 6th, 1993. Something along those lines. Didn't happen. Apparently, and as sad as it is, I think, who was it? I think it's Richard Dawkins or Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais comes out with some proper gems sometimes. How sad is it that the most devoutly religious are wanting the world to end just to be proven right, just to say the rapture is coming, the rapture is happening, let's see, I was right, you were wrong, but we're all going to die. Oh, the righteous are going to be taken up, so you don't have to worry about that. So Dr. Harold Camping, he convinced a lot of people to give up absolutely everything, and apparently the moment the rapture was supposed to happen, he was sat at home listening to the radio, waiting for the news reports of death and destruction to come to his ears. So that went wrong. Then he changed it to 3 years after that. That didn't happen. 4 years after that, didn't happen. In the end he said, oh, maybe we shouldn't predict the end of the world because that's a bit rude and it says you're not supposed to in the Bible. If only he was an ordained priest, he would have found that out if he read the Pogsy Bible. Anyway, so let's get on to this. So the first was step one. Step one, it requires a breakdown of all archaeological knowledge. This will apparently be accomplished by faking earthquakes at precise locations around the planet. Fake new discoveries at these locations will finally explain to all people the error of fundamental religious doctrines, specifically Christian and Muslim doctrines. So all the other faiths, they're fine. This is just going to be Christians and Muslims. Okay, that's a little bit narrow-minded. So, finally explain to all people the error of all fundamental religious doctrines. Well, I've got my own feelings about that. So what they're saying is, if you remember ISIS, when they took over Afghanistan, they ransacked all the museums and basically destroyed hundreds, thousands of years of archaeological artifacts because they went against their own religious beliefs. Stop knocking the poxy microphone. Get rid of previous history, we make our new history. But anyway, guys, I'm going to quote a bit of this because it does make a lot of sense. If you want to thoroughly usurp a current way of thinking, you need to completely discredit and destroy it before putting forward your own. However, religious belief is notoriously resilient to things like facts. The Shroud of Turin is a famous example that is still believed by many to be a genuine Shroud of Jesus, as opposed to the medieval forgery that has been conclusively shown to be. Now, the Shroud of Turin, this is going on a bit longer than I thought it was, but here we go. Shroud of Turin, I remember seeing that as a child, and it was the absolute 100% concrete proof that Jesus was real, because here's a picture of his face. But then, as you get older, you look at it and you think, that doesn't look like something that's been wrapped around a human head. Did I speak about this in my Noah's Ark? I can't remember. I'll quickly go over it again. If you wrap something around a face, when you lift it off that face, it will not look like a picture of a face. It will look like a texture map on a 3D model of Tommy Vercetti from GTA Vice City. This is what I mean. I do apologise about that. When I used to play GTA Vice City on the PC, you could use, I can't remember what the program was, you could extract all the textures, all the audio, everything like that from the game and edit it. I put my eldest son's face on the Easter egg in GTA Vice City. If you know where the Easter egg in Vice City is, I put it on that, and I was really quite chuffed about it. But what you could do, you could find the face maps of the main characters, and basically it was flattened out. Makes sense when you wrap it around a sphere, or wrap it around the model that would be the character's head. But it looked nothing like a face, which is why I always thought the Shrouded Turin looked really dodgy. It looked more like a painting of a face rather than a face. Never believed it. That's my sidebar over. Anyway, so step 2 involves a gigantic space show wherein 3-dimensional holographic laser projections will be beamed all over the planet. The projections will take the shape of whatever deity is most predominant and will speak in all languages. At the end of this light show, the gods will all merge into one god, the Antichrist. Who's going to believe that? Honestly. We're in 2023. We're not talking about a modest group of people looking at lightning as it happens and thinking it's the anger of the gods. And so they have to, I don't know, plant another field of corn or something along those lines. We are a nation of people now who very rarely believe the first thing they see and take it as face value, unless you're a flat earther or conspiracy theorists, who do take the first thing they see at face value, don't try to think about it critically at all, and just take it on the chin, so to speak. My friend Becca, I used to work with at the hotel, she is on a holiday to Vegas at the moment, and they have that gigantic ball that's covered in LED screens. It looks amazing, but Vegas is one of those places I really don't think I ever want to visit. Everything I've heard about it is just bad. I don't know. I'm sure it's nice. If you've got loads of money, you've got loads of time to walk around, I'm sure it's a lovely place, but I haven't heard anything good about it. Lose money and get mugged. So anyway, so you've got drone technology where you can draw pictures in the sky. You've got this massive 3D ball in Vegas where you can project anything you like in crystal clear quality. Do you honestly think that if somebody projected an image of Jesus, Muhammad or Buddha or any of these deities onto, what would it project it onto? Unless you're talking about the firmament, in which you're buggered because there is no firmament. Firmament just means sky. You'd look at that and you think, oh, that's impressive. Nobody would believe it. And also, it should also be said that if you're going to put a projection of Allah or Muhammad onto anywhere, you're going to make 1.5 billion Muslims very, very angry. You're not allowed to do that. And let us not forget that the current suggested image of what Jesus, if he was a real person, looks like, is not a white guy with long, blonde, wavy hair. So obviously Jesus, if he was indeed a real person, was a Middle Eastern farmer, for lack of a better expression, or was the son of a Middle Eastern farmer. He would not have looked like the guys we used to see on our stained glass windows. So step 2, projecting a holographic depiction of a non-specific deity onto nothing. Holograms really aren't that advanced at the moment, and you'd have to project it to 7.5 billion people at the same time, hoping that half of them aren't asleep, and somehow convincing them that this is a true word of God before they get distracted and start scrolling through TikTok videos again. Step 3 is telepathic electronic two-way communication. Involves making people think that God is speaking to them through telepathy projected into the head of each person individually using extreme low frequency radio waves. This is the patent I was talking about a few moments ago. I will put up the patent here, and I will put a link to the article down below. And step 4, last part. Making humanity think an alien invasion is about to occur in every major city, making the Christians think the rapture is about to happen. A mixture of electronic and supernatural forces, allowing the supernatural forces to travel through fibre optics, coax power and telephone lines. Coax? Really? Who uses coax these days? And telephone lines to penetrate all electric equipment and appliances that will by then all have a special microchip installed. So it's not just NASA, it's Panasonic as well. New chaos will break out and people will finally be willing, perhaps even desperate, to accept the New World Order. The techniques used in the fourth step is exactly the same used in the past in the USSR to force people to accept communism. There's a nasty buzzword, isn't it? So yeah, everything I've said, the 4 points or the 4 steps of Project Bluebeam, utter garbage. It is actually quite interesting because this video I've just done and Project Bluebeam was 2000. So the video I've just done was 2016. Project Bluebeam has been around since 1990. But that's Serge Monsat. If you took one look at the guy, it's like following the words of L. Ron Hubbard. Why would you trust anything this guy says? I mean, they know that cult leaders can be very charismatic and what have you, but look at the beard, man. But despite the gap between then and now, it really is quite interesting. I think I said in my video about universe. I think I said in my video about all this lying under oath about alien invasions and alien technologies that are already down on Earth. It's really quite interesting that that's happening now with the Maui thing. It's sort of massive, I want to say coincidence, it's all kind of come together. But whenever anything like Maui happens, there are always people who say it's got to be a conspiracy. 9/11, that's another prime one. But the alien invasion thing, we're supposed to be getting indoctrinated now to believe in more and more that there is a very credible, possibility that aliens exist or alien civilizations exist, and we're already being visited by them. I think it's fair to say that if they existed and they were capable of visiting us by now, we'd really know about it. But what's the funniest part about all of this Project Bluebeam nonsense is that it's actually, when it comes down to it, completely plagiarised from Star Trek. In 1975, Gene Roddenberry accepted an offer from Paramount to develop Star Trek into a feature film and moved back into his old office on the Paramount lot. His proposed story told of a flying saucer hovering above the Earth that was programmed to send down people who looked like prophets, including Jesus Christ. And the title of the Star Trek project was actually called The God Thing, and was actually kind of converted into a story for Star Trek Next Generation in 1991 called The Devil's Due. So again, once again, another conspiracy theory that people seem to think is gaining traction and gaining credence because conspiracy theorists are just expanding on the same thing over and over and over again. It's all based on Star Trek and it's all based on science fiction. They're all citing, with this chap I just said about ODD TV, using Independence Day and clips from chat shows from nearly 20 years ago or nearly 10 years ago to prove absolutely nothing. There's nothing new here at all that we didn't already know, weren't already aware of, with regards to the possibility of there being life on other planets. And again, there's no chance whatsoever they've already been here, but that's my personal belief. I'd love there to be aliens, but if they did come down to visit us, as I think my dad used to say years ago, we wouldn't stand a chance anyway. So I wouldn't worry about Project Bluebeam. It's all a bunch of garbage, nothing but word salad, and the guy had a stupid beard. Is that me being a little bit too superficial?
No.
Anyway, that'll do for this one. I have waffled on much longer than I thought I was going to. Like most conspiracies, there's no basis in reality and there's all basis in science fiction, like most things. I will say one more thing before I go. I did go up to London with Max last Tuesday. Went up to see the Book of Mormon. I had a few hours to mooch around. Lost an hour in Trafalgar Square because we suddenly realised it was 5 o'clock. We had an hour before the theatre doors open. We had nothing to do. So we just mooched around Trafalgar Square and watched a load of Bangladeshi people walk past and protest outside Downing Street, which was fun. Because there was two. There was the Stop ULEZ protest, which was going on at Parliament Square. And we had a load of Bangladeshi people protesting against the current government over in Bangladesh. Video here. But what we did do, as I said before, we went to the Science Museum, which is always fascinating. There's a little bit too much pay in here to do here. There's a whole bottom section where you have to pay 15 or 20 quid, and you could just spend all day playing Xbox games or old Nintendo games. I can do that on an emulator. But anyway, the reason I wanted to go there, me personally, Max loves the big old steam engines there. They have a full court pendulum. And as you can see, it's actually been raised off the floor. It was on the ground. But I have a funny feeling some cheeky scamps may have got into it and upset the balance, so to speak. But this, I'm going to direct to our friend, the Level Earth Observer. Now, one of its 3 fundamentals is that cranes and pendulums can't stay stationary on a rotating, wobbling Earth. Part of the fact that the planet isn't wobbling at any kind of discernible rate. This is what an actual pendulum is. It's an amazingly thin wire with a very precise weight that has been moved in a very specific way. When Folcourt was engineering the pendulum, he said you have to release it with absolutely no sway or wobble when you let go, otherwise it can upset the whole thing. This pendulum can in no way whatsoever be related to Adam's crane, the one he sits in and uses his mobile phone when he's not working, obviously, to record things, because he's done a couple. Where's Wally did a video where you actually saw a bit of Adam's head. Spiky hair, surly demeanour, doesn't like toys. Adam is actually Sid from Toy Story. Sidebar, really sorry about that. Sorry about that, just a little bit of Pixar humour. But anyway, as I said, that is a full court pendulum. That is the pendulum we are talking about when we're talking about the rotation of the Earth. You sit in your crane picking up massive slabs of timber or whatever it is, that massive greasy cable, rope, chain with your hook at the end, that's not a pendulum. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So please stop using that fundamental, but please stop using all of your fundamentals, because hundreds of people, myself included, have told you time and time again they're all complete garbage. But anyway, right, that will do for me. Thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far, gone a lot longer than I thought I was going to. Honestly, before I started doing this video, I had no idea how far along I was going to get with it, because I hadn't done any research. But I take it this is just the way my mind works. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see some more. If you want me to look at any more videos, please send me some links. Post some links down below. Or send me a message or what have you, or send me to my email. My reason being, my YouTube algorithm, my YouTube search, I think I said this in one of my previous videos, doesn't bring up the results I want. All it does is bring up, if I search for flat Earth on YouTube, it just brings me up loads and loads of debunking videos, or things why the Earth isn't flat. So I want the other side of the spectrum. And I'm not being promoted or not being plugged. I spend a lot of time going to theatres lately. If you haven't seen the Book of Mormon, I really strongly recommend it. It is hilarious. The songs are amazing. It's very crass. There's a lot of use of swear words and what have you like that. But it's absolutely amazing. Amazing theatre show, musical. Written by the guys who did South Park. So if you know their humour, Treat Me America Well Please, South Park movie and all of the South Park seasons, you know what to expect, but just expect more, and it's real, King Charles Theatre in London. I don't know where it is in Broadway. It's just off Leicester Square, so plenty to do while you're waiting for the theatre doors to open, isn't there, Max?
Yes.
Go to Burger King again. Okay. Right, that'll do. I've waffled on long enough, and it's getting quite late on a Saturday evening, as per usual. Thank you, and good night.